right, welcome to class. Today we are reviewing in preparation for our exam. Our exam is a multiple guess, that was a joke, multiple choice exam, all done on Canvas. There are a lot of questions. It looks like there's only 11 questions, but within each question there's a lot of questions. So I want to make sure that you're prepared for all of it. So here we go. We started way back with chapter 9. Is this correct? Chapter 9, Triads and Second Inversion. Do you remember this? I'm not sharing my screen. That is not helpful. Okay, now I'm sharing my screen. We started talking about triads and second inversion. And what was the point of triads and second inversion? Just for funsies. No one knows. No one cares.
It's used for bass variation.
Okay, good. What else?
It's not used for endings because it's not very stable.
Good.
Take out dissonances.
Okay,
Used as a credential.
good. All right, so we have bass arpeggiation and the melodic bass. It makes things smoother, right? We have the cadential 6/4, which we talked quite a bit about. What do you know about the cadential 6/4? Anybody want a roommate? We talked about the whole, it's not really a 1/6/4, it's really a 5/7 and function thing with the bracket. You remember that? Stop me or I'm just going to cruise. All right, the passing 6/4 chord can be ascending or descending. Usually falls on a weak beat. It's filling in the gap, right? Filling in the step.
Passing is most common 5 or a 1, 6/4.
Yes, I would know that for the test. Good. Pedal 6/4. So the pedal note stays the same. But everything else moves. Sometimes called an embellishing or stationary 6/4. All right, 2 ways in which 6/4 chords are produced is through bass arpeggiation and a melodic bass. Name the 3 other kinds of 6/4 chords discussed in this chapter.
Pedal 6/4.
Pedal 6/4.
Passing 6/4.
Passing 6/4. Cadential 6/4. You forgot the most important one. The cadential 6/4 chord precedes what root position triad?
5.
Yes, the dominant. What two triads are most often used as passing 6/4 chords? What do you mean you don't know? Go ahead.
5 and 1.
5/6/4, 1/6/4. The pedal 6/4 usually involves one of two progressions. What are they?
This what's up there, right? 1 4 1 5 1 5.
You got it. Right there. Moving on. Do you remember doing these kinds of exercises where you had to find places to put things? Before we go there, would you be able to do something like this? Analyzing chords with Roman numerals? You're going to get an example like this. And you're going to have 20 chords like this that you need to identify from a drop-down menu. Does that make sense? So you're going to fill in the blanks by selecting the correct answer from a drop-down menu. And you're going to have like a gazillion choices. Sure, I don't care if you use the chart. Chart. You can use that. That's fine.
How would we be able to mark a cadential 6/4?
Ooh, good question.
Like a little bracket underneath.
Don't mark the bracket. Mark it as if it was just mark it as a 1/6/4.
Okay.
There is no bracket option for you. All right, so you'll have something similar to that. I think, let me double check. I think that's all that's on your exam from chapter 9.
What was the common progression again?
Which one? Are you talking about the question? There was two questions that was asked in that little blurb. One was the
number
cadential
4.
6/4 chord precedes what root position triad, and the other one was the two chords that are most often used as passing 6/4 chords.
The pedals, yeah, number 4, right? The pedal 6/4.
Let me go back to it. The pedal 6/4 usually involves one of two progressions. What are they? 1 to 4/6/4 to 1, and 5 to 1/6/4 to 5.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Okay, so that's chapter 9. Questions, comments, concerns? All right, chapter 10 was all about cadences, phrases, periods, and sentences. This was the doozy of the chapter. Do you remember this? We talked about cadences, and there were a bunch of types of cadences. Do you remember them all?
Probably not.
What? There you go. There's the nice chart I'm looking for. We have an authentic cadence. First chord contains the leading tone, and the second chord is a tonic. Usually, it's 5-1. Plagal cadence does not contain the leading tone. The second chord is the tonic. That's usually 4-1. The deceptive cadence, the first chord contains the leading tone. The second chord is not tonic. That's usually something to 6. The half cadence, first chord does not contain the leading tone. The second chord is not tonic. Typically, that second chord is a dominant. I think there's a better chart coming up. Oh, yes. If you follow me on Doc B Piano on Instagram, I put this as a picture, as a post with all of the answers. We did it in class once. Do you remember this? So it gives examples of all of these cadences. If you had to do this, could you get it right? There's something remarkably similar to this on your exam. Do you know all of those?
What's 7-1?
What is 7-1?
7-6, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that the inverted IX?
It's a leading tone. Oh, yeah. Right.
I think you were right. It is the leading tone IAC. What's the perfect authentic cadence?
5 and 1 are in root position,
Yeah.
and the tonics in the melody.
So you're saying letter
A.
Oh,
Oh, G.
G.
2.
A. 5 and 1, both in root position.
3.
F.
I like F. 5.
B.
B is right. 6.
C.
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 7.
H.
D is number 8, is letter 8. It's the last one. Go team. We all right with that? All right, clearing my screen, moving on. This chapter was also the chapter where we got to learn about periods and sentences and double periods and all that fun stuff. Motives. What's a motive? Smallest musical idea. Can be rhythmic or melodic. or both? Phrases, what do phrases end with?
Cadence.
Cadence is good. A period is made up of two phrases. Remember that the first phrase has a weaker cadence than the final phrase. Yeah? Those are the two most commonly found period types. We use the term parallel period if both phrases begin with similar or identical material. Remember Ode to Joy. Right? Okay. Parallel period has A and A prime. You can have a three-phrase period. You can have a double period. Notice it has the antecedent consequent. That's a question, answer. That half cadence is a good sign that you have an antecedent. Right? Remember that a repeated period is not a double period, because a double period requires contrasting cadences. A repeated period would have the same, right?
What's a double period again?
What is a double period? A double period consists typically of four phrases and two pairs. The cadence at the end of the second pair being stronger than the cadence at the end of the first pair. So, phrase, 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 half cadence or iac. If you have a half cadence, you have to have a pack or an iac. If you have an iac, you have to have a pack because it has to be stronger than that. Question, answer. It's similar to a period, but you have a pair of phrases rather than just one phrase.
Making sure you got back out of bed.
Oh, I did. And I'm here, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Are you bright-eyed?
I am, because I have a light right in my face. So I look good for YouTube. All right. So you will be given a piece, and you will have to identify what is the structure, what is the form. You'll be given multiple forms, multiple diagrams of periods and parallel double periods and contrasting periods and sentences and all that stuff. And you got to label, select which is the right one for the musical excerpt that you've been given. Does that make sense? Let's find an example. But first, we need to talk about the sentence. So the sentence, remember, has the X's that are not what is it? They don't necessarily end with cadences, right?
Are they
Cent-
picky on using
The X's don't have
X
to end in
as
cadences.
a variable?
Say that again, Catherine.
Are they picky on variables they use? For example, for the periods and stuff, they used A's and B's, and
Right.
sentences they used X's.
Right.
Hmm.
Don't they also have like phases?
Phrases or phases?
Phrases, sorry.
Unlike the period, a sentence is typically, though not always, a single phrase in length. And that's punctuated by a cadence at the end of it. With me?
Yeah, okay.
So we've got a musical idea, and it's repeated, although it can be changed. So we have an idea and its variant, and they're labeled as X and X prime.
But those wouldn't have cadences at the end of those phrases necessarily.
Correct. Well, let me rephrase that. Let me change what you said. We would have a cadence at the end of the phrase. And I want to go back to this part of the definition, which says a sentence is typically, though not always, a single phrase in length. So yes, you will have a cadence at the end of the phrase. Typically, this is one phrase. But these typically do not end in a cadence because they are just a musical idea, not a phrase. Does that help?
Yeah. So could you say they're more like motives?
Yeah. So they're going to give us an example here. It's the Mozart.
Example 10:17.
So remember, when we looked at this example initially, it was kind of confusing because we had harmonies that we would typically hear as cadences, but they are not functioning as cadences. Remember? Do you remember that trickiness?
I have a question for. Could you go back to the periods, or where like that you could see the double period and stuff? What? How could you differentiate what would be a like? So they have A and A prime, or it was A something, and then it was A B and then B prime and A, or A and B prime. How could you differentiate whether the A wasn't primed and why the B was?
Okay, so if A is A primed, it's going to start with the same idea.
Okay.
A prime.
Oh, okay.
A, B. Totally different. But A started with the same, A prime started with the same material that A did, right? But it changed. We left you hanging out on a half cadence. We can't die there and end happy. We can't end there and die happy. There we had a final cadence.
Okay. And that would be A prime.
Yeah, because it began with the same.
At the very end, it barely changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Excellent. So this might help too. When you are listening to and analyzing a group of phrases for the first time, it is useful to think about certain musical features that can enable you to distinguish among different kinds of forms. The following clues, when considered in combination, can serve as effective points of orientation. Look for the location of repetitions, exact or varied, of the initial measures. If a repetition occurs somewhere in the middle of the passage, a parallel period or some kind of repeated form is a likely possibility. If it occurs immediately after the initial measures, a sentence or a sentence nested inside a larger period is possible. Note also that repetitions in parallel periods are typically exact or very similar, whereas repetitions in sentences may be exact or quite varied. Number 2, look for the location and number of very strong cadences, unambiguous packs and half cadences or root position iacs. Periods tend to feature at least 2 of these, 4 or more in the case of some double periods, but sentences often contain only 1, at or near the end. That is true. 3, look for the order and pattern of cadences. If the cadence pattern repeats itself, such as half cadence, perfect authentic cadence, half cadence, perfect authentic cadence, a repeated period or sentence is likely. If there is a single strong cadence, a sentence is likely. If there are many strong cadences, a double period is possible. We would want to look for repetition of the initial measures to find the beginning of the consequent phrase. So looking for repetition, looking for cadences, looking for strong cadences. Those are our clues.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
So remember when we were talking about this in class, we were saying that some of it is rather subjective.
Right.
So on the test, will there be one correct answer
There
or
will be one correct answer.
okay, so it'll be relatively obvious then?
I hope so. It should be, because I'm looking at the answer choices right now, and there are 6 diagrams that you have to choose from for this particular musical example, right? And it's telling you that there are certain types of cadences at certain measure numbers. So if I don't have a half cadence happening at measure 12, or I don't have a half cadence happening at measure 8, I know that answer is absurd. Does that make sense? So I know that this chapter's brutal. I remember. I've taught it twice now. 2 different semesters. So this, I don't think you need to be super worried. I know that you're a little fuzzy on the details. So am I. And there is that subjectivity to it. But if you can identify cadences and phrases, you're going to be able to find the right answer. Make sense? All right, so yeah, it'll be something like this. You'll get a piece of musical example like this, or like this. And it'll ask you which diagram matches. Also, be able to do something like this. Be able to identify cadences in given examples like that. Yeah? So what's number 7, for example? What kind of a cadence is it?
Listen.
Say again?
Is it a half cadence?
It is a half cadence. Piece of cake. All right. Pretty sure that takes care of that chapter. All right. Okay, two-part tonal counterpoint. In this chapter, we learned about one-to-one species. Remember that? Everything was half notes. Everything moved at the same kind of speed, right? And we were restricted to staying in root position and being restricted to a range that was pretty short. Do you remember all these rules? So I'm not going to have you do part writing because that would be a nightmare to grade, as you can tell, as your other tests have still not fully been graded because there's so much writing. But you're going to need to be able to find errors, right? So because we need to know errors, we need to know all these rules. So here we go. Step 1, our baseline stays in root position. We're limited in range. Step 2, certain chords must remain in root position. The first and the last chord have to be in root position. The 5 in a 5-to-1 cadence has to be in root position. The 6 in a deceptive cadence, a 5-to-6 progression, must be in first root position. Then there are chords that must be used in first inversion. You remember this? The diminished triads have to be in first inversion. Either the 5 or the 1, but not both, in an internal 5-to-1 progression must be in first inversion. Do you remember that? Because we don't want it to sound too final when it's not. All right. We don't want to repeat bass lines, especially across a bar line. Do you remember that rule? We need to have a focal point. We want a bass focal point, and we want a soprano focal point. We don't want large leaps. We want tonal variety. So because of these things, you might need to invert a chord to provide that tonal variety, to avoid that large leap, to give us the focal point we need. If a large leap occurs, we have to change direction right after the leap. We want to avoid dissonant intervals. The only ones that are allowed are the augmented fourth and the diminished fifth. And we needed to change direction because of that leap. When we're in minor, we want to be in melodic minor. They want us to avoid the 6/4 chords that we talked about in chapter 9. But you can have a cadential at the end, right? So you're going to be given a line, and you are going to be asked to find the problems with it. So remember this? We had A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. We had 12 error examples of errors. And they gave us an example of each one. I'm going to give you a melodic line, And you're going to have to find what are the error examples. So if we did this one, for example, what would we come up with?
Not enough tonal variety.
Yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 B's. That's boring. Good. What else?
5 actually. Oh no, yeah.
5. There's 3 types of people in this world, Catherine.
Well, I saw you counting the.
You're right. There are 5. I missed the whole note. Here's a repeated note over the bar line. That's a no-no.
The total range is very narrow.
Yeah. So we have error 2, which is redundant pitches. We have 3 repeated pitches, which repeats across the bar line. Overly restrictive range and boring, which is error F.
Is boring a separate?
It's with overly restrictive range.
Okay.
There's no improperly resolved leading tone. We're in major, so the melodic minor thing's out. We don't have any crazy big leaps. Do we have 3 consecutive leaps in the same direction? No, we don't.
Three consecutive loops are bad even if it outlines a triad?
If they're in the same direction. If they all go up or they all go down.
I feel like it contradicts itself from earlier, from like last semester.
Oh yeah, we've evolved.
Yesterday.
So here we have leaps all in the same direction. Da, 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 da.
Oh, but they don't outline a triad.
I mean, they do outline a triad, but they don't. I mean, it's a B flat major triad. But they all go the same direction. All right, so I know those errors. I list them all as answer choices, but you have to find the errors in a particular given melody.
Will you have like multiple of those things, or will it just like be one?
There will be multiple.
Okay.
There's a couple of those, so. All right. Then that's all that we have in this chapter. Then we go on to non-chord tones. Last chapter, chapter 12, right? So if I was you, I would know that little chart. Yeah. Questions on any of those non-chord tone definitions?
Will we be using it? Only goes up to a appoggiatura. It doesn't do the escape tone because we did escape tone in
So the first chapter, chapter 12, went up to. Yeah, it was divided between chapter 12 and chapter 13, but you need to know all of them.
Oh, okay.
Because our exam covers through 13, right?
Oh, okay. What's the pedal point one?
Pedal point. The pedal point has been saved for last because it's the best. Oh, wait. It just says it's in a class of its own. So the pedal point happens when the pedal point stays constant the whole time, but the harmonies over the top of it change. As in this example, 13-9.
Example 13:9.
So, pedal note, hanging out on that low G. Chords change over the top, causing our harmonic analysis to change over the top. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on these non-chord tones?
Neighbor group, it was escape tone first, then the partitura? Or was it the partitura first and then escape tone?
Let's look.
Escape tone, then the partitura.
What's the escape tone?
You go up and then leap. And then partitura is it leaps and then steps. But they both have to be right next to each other for you to see that it's neighbor group.
Yes, and I think that the thing that solidified it for me the other day when we were talking about this was this line right here, which says, for it to be a neighbor group, where does it say it?
Two successive non-chord tones.
Yeah. Where does it say that? Two NCTs in succession.
Yeah.
Right there. So if you don't have parentheses around two notes in a row, it is not a neighbor group. With me? We got to have two parentheses notes. Is that a word? Parentheses? It is now. Got to have two parentheses notes in a row. Oh, yeah, there's Catherine's pink and green. Woo! Look at that. Watermelon suckers, brick oven.
It's my soul. Especially since they could have been consistent with all the other charts they've been doing, and then they chose to throw in that atrocity.
Come on. There they are. Wait for it.
That all looks just delicious. What is?
So these guys used to make a watermelon sucker.
Pass lollies if we pass the an average passing rate.
Where's the rain? Where's the watermelon ones? Come on. I'm disappointed.
They sold out on.
It's that one right there. It's in the picture, for crying out loud. It's right there. Pink and green.
It looks delicious.
It's so good. Watermelon sucker. There, it's this one.
It looks like bubble gum though, like apple and bubble gum.
Can you believe it's $1.79? It's a bad picture. Anyway, childhood memories. On we go. Do we have all of these down? Questions, comments, concerns? All right, so you will be tested on the definitions of all of these. And then you're going to get something like a musical example that's marked, I think. Yeah, you're going to get an example where you're given a piece of music like this, a short excerpt that has parentheses, and you have to identify which kind of NCT is in the parentheses. Does that make sense?
We're gonna have to do the 4398 thing.
You very well may.
Can we go over it?
This test is way too easy. No, it's not. So, whoa, hold on.
The one that said that.
What's that?
Were you reading a comment that said that?
No, I was looking at the answer choices for one of the questions, and there's an error in it. I got to go in and fix, because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 answer choices. But what happened was everything got copied and pasted like twice. So
When will the test be available to take?
I'm going to open it today.
And we can take it today to.
Today through Sunday. Is that all right?
I look, want to take it today just to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Is it timed or can we just?
It will be timed.
Okay.
Yep.
How long do we have on it?
I can't remember. Let's look. I'm in the middle of it, so it's not going to tell me. Let me get out of it. You do get over an hour. I know that. Let's go back. You get 120 minutes. Way too long. I should make that 90, but I'm not going to. Let me go fix this one question right now while I've got it, because that was a lot of answers. I think it was this one. Whoa, come back. So yeah, you're going to identify okay, so 1, 2, 3. That shouldn't be there. That shouldn't be there. Pedal point. Poggiatura. We've already had. So for this question, all the answers got put in there twice. So there's a gazillion answers.
So it's like, guess which right answer. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I don't want to have happen.
Oh, that'd be so stressful.
You picked the wrong one.
Darn it.
How many anticipations can we have? How many pedal points can
Not
we
enough
have?
to make it spicy.
How many suspensions and retardations? All right, I think I fixed that question. Let me save it. Yeah, so 120 minutes. It's worth 102 points. Yeah. Other questions? Let me go back to the preview and make sure that we've covered everything. And that question was resolved. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you have 9 types of NCTs you need to know. Yeah? I think we've covered everything. So all of chapter 12 and all of chapter 13 just go over each individual non-chord tone. True?
We need to go over the 4-3.
4-3 suspension.
Yeah, the
Okay.
stuff.
So remember that in order to be a suspension, you have to be approaching with the same note, right? Because a suspension holds on to or suspends a chord tone after other parts have moved on to the next chord. So here we have a tie giving us the suspension note and the note of resolution. So the 4-3 particularly is going to happen when above the bass line it is a fourth going to a third. So our bass note is F. Our note of suspension, our non-chord tone, which doesn't belong in the dominant chord, is a B flat, which is a fourth above our bass note, and it resolves down to an A, which is a chord tone. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What about, and it's in the bass?
Yeah, so we have a 2-3 suspension here. So the non-chord tone with the parentheses resolves down. So the dissonance that occurs is a second, and it resolves out to a third.
So bass suspension's always going to be a 2/3.
I wouldn't say that. I would never say always. Remember, you can also have that suspension with change of bass. Like we do here, we have a 2/6 suspension in our bass. And when I say bass, we're still in treble clef. So originally our suspension was a second with our non-chord tone, and it was resolved to a sixth. So they're saying in our book here, when a suspension occurs in one of the upper voices, the bass will sometimes move on to another chord tone at the same time as the suspension resolves. This device is referred to as a suspension with change of bass. In such a case, a 7/6 suspension, for example, might become a 7/3 suspension because of the movement of the bass. It is also possible to move the upper part of the dissonance as the bass resolves in a 2/3 suspension, creating a 2/6 suspension. So we have a 7/3, and we have a 4/6. And a 9/6. And then that 2/6. So I would not say always. How are we feeling about this? Do you feel like you're ready? Or you will be after you rewatch all of my videos and like and subscribe and give me a bunch of views?
Yeah. We got the
Say-
entire spring break to do it, so
That's going to be we're going to have it due before spring break though, yeah?
oh,
Going to be
You
due
still
Sun.
can watch his videos.
You still
all
can, yeah.
day. Like, he's not saying no to that.
Binge watch the Doc B Theory channels. Exciting stuff. There's nothing on Netflix that's more exciting. All right. So I think we've covered everything that's on your exam. In fact, I know we have.